The Unmarked by Matt Fleagle. Chapter 20. The Beast Within the Dragon. "Then," said Fallwrinkle, "one thing remains for you to do." The warden turned toward the whimpering dragon. "But first," he mumbled, "let's see if we can help this poor unfortunate fellow." "Oh, yes, Warden," Kaleb said, rushing over to where the beast lay on the grass. "Tava said you could help this dragon. It was wounded by Verliston's sword while shielding us from the Stonerenders." Fallwrinkle staggered up to the dragon, leaning on his cane as he walked. Like Tava, he seemed completely unafraid of the dragon's toothy snout and powerful limbs. Said the warden, reaching up to stroke the dragon's long orange snout. "The magic I worked proved a bit rusty." "Magic?" said Kaleb. "That's right," said Fallwrinkle, squinting through his old eyes at the dragon's forepaw. "I sent this creature to help you. That is, once I perceived you might need some help when you reached Ablerin." "But where did you find a dragon?" said Kaleb. "Find it? What in the world do you mean?" I've never seen a dragon. Neither had anyone in Ablerin by their reactions to it. Did you summon the creature from some distant land?" Fallwrinkle let out another long laugh. "Why, Kaleb, this creature has been around longer than you and I, only not in this form." He reached down and stroked the furry top of the beast's foot. "Dragons are magic. Don't you remember? This one's been living among us for some time, only in disguise. Dragons can be quite terrifying to some people, you know." Kaleb smiled. "Yeah, you could say that." "It only takes a little magic to draw the dragon form out, and this time," he said, peering into the dragon's calm eyes, "it looks like my spell didn't work as well as I hoped." Kaleb took a step closer to the dragon. "He has trouble seeing, Fallwrinkle. It made landing in the courtyard a risky affair." "Well, we will do our best to remedy this," the warden replied, taking a step back and smiling up at the giant beast. The dragon suddenly sneezed, spraying hot, wet air all over Kaleb's feet. Kaleb groaned and rubbed the edge of his boot along the ground, wiping it clean. The warden chuckled. Then he pulled the dragon's head toward him, until his face was nearly swallowed up in the orange fur that fringed the dragon's ear. "I think it's time," Kaleb overheard Fallwrinkle whisper, "to release you from this cumbersome form, my little friend." "Little?" mouthed Kaleb. The warden lifted his cane. He began waving it back and forth as the dragon squinted at him curiously. The same brilliant emerald light that enveloped the warden as he danced the history of Parison suddenly flooded the courtyard. In a matter of moments, even the bright rays of the morning sun paled against the luster of the emerald light. The light swallowed up the ornate tip of Fallwrinkle's cane, then flowed forward, enveloping the dragon. The massive beast craned its neck and widened its eyes as though trying to make sense of the warm color washing over its massive body. The light sweeping over the dragon in pulsing waves seemed to undo the creature, shrinking its legs and shortening its snout. For several moments, Kaleb thought the dragon was disappearing and might vanish any moment. Instead, the beast simply dwindled to a fraction of its former size. Its wings gone, its long back and tail truncated into a tiny shape that got lost in the bright emerald glow that enveloped it. Then, like a mist at sunrise, the emerald light quickly dispersed. Kaleb could see the creature clearly again. He stood with mouth and eyes wide open, unable to find a word for what he saw. For there, where the dragon had stood, was Leek, shaking his little head like a child working water out of his ears after a swim. The bando's beautiful orange coat flashed in the morning light. Leek stretched his short legs out, one at a time. Fallwrinkle knelt his gnarled legs and squatted next to the bando. "How do you feel, my little friend?" he said warmly. Much better. Oh, so much better, chattered the creature. I had so many adventures, Fallwrinkle, but I'm quite tired and so glad to be rid of those ungainly wings. Kaleb managed to find his voice again. But so it was Leek all along? Leek is a dragon? He stammered. But how is that possible? How is anything possible? Said the warden, a glint shining in his old eyes as he straightened up again. Oh, I know, Leek squeaked as though he couldn't help himself. It was by magic, wasn't it, Fallwrinkle? That's right, Leek. Kaleb shook his head. But don't look so surprised, child, Fallwrinkle said. Every shred of your life is the product of magic. Every breath and every word. Where do you think the power to dance and love and create come from, if not by the forest spirit's magic? Still, muttered Kaleb. What is it? Spit it out, son. Well, creatures are what they are, Kaleb said. Men and beasts and dragons. I mean, a man can't simply swell to 10 times his size and grow wings and a tail. I should think he could, given the right magic. In this case, my spell erred a bit. It took Leek's voice and weakened his sight, but all in all, I'd say it did the trick. He was a magnificent dragon, if I say so myself. Fallwrinkle winked at Leek as he said this. So, you can make any creature into something else simply by magic? Kaleb said. Well, no, of course not. Not exactly, replied the warden. Only the forest spirit can make people and beasts into what they once were not. On the other hand, he continued, scratching the thinning hair on his head, a little magic can bring something extraordinary out of someone you'd never suspected in. What do you mean? Asked Kaleb. Fallwrinkle motioned with his cane toward Leek. Take a look at this bando, Kaleb. Within Leek was something more powerful than you could even imagine. A few moments ago, this little creature was a dragon. The same is true of you, he said, pointing the tip of his stick at Kaleb's gut. If you can get past your reservations about letting a little magic into your world, you'll find something as brilliant as a dragon inside you, too, I would expect. Kaleb shrugged. He glanced down again at the bando, who was nursing the small, scabby wound running along his back with his tiny paws. Apparently, Fallwrinkle's magic had not healed the dragon's injury completely, but the long wound had shrunk to a tiny cut that might leave a barely visible scar, nothing more. Kaleb looked up at the sun, and realizing it was almost midday, said, The rest of our escape party can't be far behind us. As much as I'd love to lie down in the grass of this quiet courtyard and sleep for days, there is a crisis close by. Verlisden is in pursuit, with a band of scouts on orders to wipe out my people. There can be no doubt of this. The warden leaned on his cane. That is all true. So, how do we stop her? What do you think the forest spirit, wants me to do next? I hear no music now. There is no mist to chase. How do I know where to go, or what to do next? That is a good question, said Fallwrinkle, frowning in deep thought. Well, do you have an answer, Warden? Kaleb replied, trying to hide the impatience in his voice. Surely the man who could turn bandos into dragons could advise him now. Fallwrinkle's expression turned sad. What's the matter, Warden? Fallwrinkle went on looking at Kaleb for some time. Then he said, You will find, child, that after a while the music of the forest spirit fades. It is the same for all of us who seek him. In fact, it is the hardest part of devotion to him. As time passes, the music that once inspired you to courage grows quieter and sounds less often. His mist will rarely appear even when the nights and your doubts grow darkest. But why, Fallwrinkle? Doesn't he want us to find him when we are in need? Oh, yes, said the old man. More than anything, he wants us to find him. But there is a truth about men. They rarely value what they easily acquire. This is why, in the beginning, the forest spirit makes himself quite apparent to men through signs and sounds and even the occasional magic. But with time, as the adventures come and go, he often withdraws into the darkness again and waits for us there. Waits for us? Waits for us to do what? To follow him out into the darkness. You mean at night? No, said Fallwrinkle. I'm speaking of a different darkness. The darkness of uncertainty and doubt. That's where you will find him, waiting to show you his face, waiting to give you himself, and only himself. That seems cruel, said Kaleb shortly. I thought the forest spirit was eager to give us aid. Whenever we were in trouble, you said he was good. He is, child, replied Fallwrinkle. Then why can't he just show us himself plainly? Why the tricks and the confusion? Fallwrinkle glanced at Leek. The bando scampered over and crawled up on the warden's bony shoulder. Sometimes the best way to know a person is to forget what you already know about him, Fallwrinkle said. Kaleb said nothing. The mist and the song, these are gifts, Kaleb, but they have a way of stealing our attention from the real gift. And what is that? Asked Kaleb. Haven't you been listening? Why, it's the forest spirit himself. Kaleb let out a sigh. With a shrug, he said, All this talk makes no sense or difference to me. I simply want to know how to save Parison. I want to know how to prevent the murder of my people. Fallwrinkle took a step closer to Kaleb. That is my point, son. All you want are solutions and not answers. Of course I want answers, Kaleb huffed. Because if Verlisden is not stopped, there will be no more Glenward or Terrashine at all. None of us will live long enough to waste more time rambling about the forest spirit or casting his spells. Parison itself will become a desolate place, ruled by cruel people. And what is Parison now? It's our home, Kaleb sputtered. A good place, a free place. Leek suddenly gave Kaleb a strange look. Good and free for whom? Said Fallwrinkle, as if articulating Leek's thoughts. Kaleb fell silent. Is Parison a good place for the beasts hiding out here in the deep woods? Was Glenward a perfect home for you? Or Ablerin for Glista? Is this a wholesome world for Tava's mother and siblings? Do you really believe, Kaleb, the threat of Verlisden is something new in a world stained with so much hatred and judgment already? Kaleb swallowed hard and unconsciously slipped his axe out from under his belt. He turned the handle over in his hand. No, Kaleb, the warden continued. The forest spirit is poised to save Parison, but not without breaking the spell over our land completely. He will show you and your people what they really are before all is done. All you must do is step into the dark with him. But how? Kaleb said softly. The stone renders are advancing on the Dellbloods as we speak, and I am powerless to stop them. Even if I reach the Dellbloods before Verlisden does, they will never listen to me. For besides being an unmarked, they now think I'm a traitor. What is more, Glista and the others are spent from our battles in Ablerin. The few of us cannot hold off a whole detachment of scouts. You are not wrong, said Fallwrinkle. So how do we stop this bloodshed? How do we prevent Verlisden from accomplishing her plans? What is the solution to this mess? Fallwrinkle took a step forward. As he did, Leek bounded from the old man's shoulders to the grass. Kaleb still could not get used to the idea that the beast who carried him to Terrashine could be perched on an old man's shoulders. I can only tell you one thing with certainty, Fallwrinkle said. The forest spirit deals in steps, not solutions, and though I cannot speak for the forest spirit, if I were to guess, I'd say your next step will simply be to determine the truest and kindest thing you can think of to do at this very moment." Kaleb stared at the ground for some time. Finally, he shook his head and sighed. "I have to go and warn my people. It will be difficult to enter Glenwood without resistance, and nearly impossible to get an audience with the elders, for as Madge warned me, their orders are to arrest me on sight." "But is it the right thing for you to do?" said Fallwrinkle. Kaleb nodded. "It's the only decent thing I can do now. That is, if I aim to save anyone in Glenwood or Terrashine." "Then you must go," said the warden. "But before you go, I have something to give you. Something you will need to take back with you to Glenwood." Without warning, Fallwrinkle snatched Kaleb's axe out of his hand. The warden then tossed his own ornate cane on the ground. Before Kaleb could object, Fallwrinkle swung Kaleb's axe down upon the gnarled cane with a heavy stroke, severing the cane's ornate tip from its crude wooden handle. "What have you done?" Kaleb shouted. "You've destroyed your magical cane." The warden didn't answer him. Instead, he kicked the head of the cane aside with his bare foot. Then he squatted down and undid the thick leather straps that bound Kaleb's axe head to its handle. He took the same straps and wound them around Kaleb's axe head as he attached it to the stem of his cane. Kaleb watched in dumb confusion. Finally, Fallwrinkle straightened up and said, "Hold out your hands, young man." Kaleb extended both hands, palms turned up. "Take this," the warden said. He laid the new axe in Kaleb's open hands. "I think you'll need this new axe before everything's done." The young man nodded, though he had no idea what Fallwrinkle meant. "But don't you need this cane, warden? You use it to create your magic." Fallwrinkle brushed off Kaleb's question with a wave of his hand. "I need a cane to walk, young man, not for magic." Then after a moment he added, "Though I suppose if swinging the cane around helps the show along a bit while performing magic, what does it hurt? Otherwise, those Simbines and hedgehogs might get bored with my routine after all these years and stop listening to me." Here he winked at Kaleb. "But no, magic can be found in any object enchanted by the forest spirit, and I know where to find them. But you and your friends do not, so take good care of that axe until it's no longer required." Kaleb nodded. He gripped the axe tightly in his scarred-up hands. "Oh, and you'll need some company, of course," the warden said. "Adventures are never as good when you're alone." Looking back at the bando, he said, "Leek, have you had your fill of adventure yet?" "Never," said the furry creature as he bounced up and down on the grass. "Then I believe our friend Kaleb here may need your knowledge of these woods to find his way back to Glenwood Village." "Certainly. I'm at your service, Kaleb," said Leek. The bando shot off toward the far courtyard wall, and pressing a small stone at the base of the structure, he opened the strangely shaped door that led through the wall and into the tunnels out of Terrashine. Without looking back, the creature bounced off into the darkness beyond the door. "You shouldn't keep your guide waiting," said Fallwrinkle, motioning towards the open door in the rock with his wrinkled hand. "Go on, Kaleb, and don't forget what the real quest is all about." "I won't," said Kaleb softly. He ran to the wall and passed through into the dark passageway that lay on the other side of the door, calling, "Leek, wait up!" Fallwrinkle watched the glint of sunlight reflecting on the sharp edge of Kaleb Dellblood's axe as it was extinguished in the darkness of the tunnel.